Okay, so the final country I'll be talking about is Iran. For the beginning of the IRI, the Constitution was violated and many civil liberties were harmed, which did hurt the power of civil society. For example, they closed down newspapers, labor unions, and other civil society groups, as well as banned protests and demonstrations. While most of the country had resentment for this, the main groups that had resentment were women and organized labor, as well as factory workers. So women were mainly fighting for equal pay, maternity leave, but also other inequality issues. And they created civil society groups to try to fix these problems. And then the main one is Women's 1 Million Signature Campaign. But also factory workers also had problems, and they created unions as well as other civil society groups to fight for workers' rights, and also had demonstrations and protests. So a supplemental source I found on civil society in Iran is the Council on Foreign Relations. So under Khatami, the civil society was actually pretty high. High amounts of NGOs, and they also were able to work with foreign groups. And Khatami said he tried to promote civil society and provided subsidies for non-governmental organizations, but he had no safeguards, and no safeguards began to have a problem when Ahmadinejad in 2005 began to hinder civil society groups. In 2005, he refused to renew licenses for many of the NGOs and other civil society groups, which did force a lot of them to shut down, as well as intelligence groups also had many of them shut down. And then during this time, he made it his main goal to prevent NGOs from networking and collaborating with foreign groups. And he was paranoid that non governmental organizations would lead to major revolutions within the country. All right, so for my comparison, I chose to compare China and Russia just because they're both pretty highly authoritative countries. For example, in China, most of the power is given to the CCP under Xi Jinping, and in Russia, most of the power is given to the president or prime minister, mainly just Putin right now. So both have taken measures to hinder civil society groups and protests. As we talked about with China, all non NGOs have to register with the government and can't be involved in protests. It can be involved in politics, and new citizen group leaders an example is the new citizens group leaders who were arrested to prevent the spread of the movement. And then in Russia, as we talked about, the 2012 law requires the NGOs with foreign funding and involved in politics had to be declared as foreign agents, and they also had laws allowing the denial of civil society groups. But to compare them, China does appear to have a more robust civil society just due to the fact that they have support of mass organizations, which allow for specific social groups to fight for non political interests, which allows them to have a voice within the government. And it also appears to support the citizens' requests for anti corruption campaigns, as they have under Xi Jinping began arresting officials in the Chinese CCP and Chinese government who have been corrupt.